Chair now recognizes Commissioner Kerry Metzger. I believe I recognize this gentleman from a previous job in the county.
I actually, at one point in time, I had a committee. I can't remember the committee anymore, but I sat right there. So I'm very familiar with the room, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
The seat's open when you're done if you want to pop on this side.
Well,
I know they're more comfortable than out there.
I'm getting, it kind of get burnt out after a while. Then you retire, and then I've come back. So,
Well, welcome to committee, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman Wilkin, Vice Chair White, Ranking Member Brown, and members of the House Government Oversight Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide opponent testimony to Senate Bill 261, which would revise Ohio's medical marijuana law. Just as a matter of introduction and background, my name is Dr. Kerry Metzger. I am a retired dentist, and I practiced that for 26 years. I had the privilege to serve in the Ohio House of Representatives from 1995 to and through 2002. I am currently serving my 17th year as a Tuscarawas County Commissioner. I also am a volunteer and currently serve as chairperson of the Tuscarawas County's Empowered Tusk Coalition. To tell you a little bit about what the coalition does, the coalition is, our vision is, the coalition is youth-focused with a vision of empowering youth to live healthy, drug-free lives. Our mission is to prevent substance use and misuse and promote mental health wellness by implementing effective prevention strategies. Frankly, as I reviewed this bill, it crossed my mind that Senate Bill 261 could have been written by the marijuana addiction for profit industry. I've read many bills in my career, and the pieces that are in here look like it's written for again the marijuana profit industry, the addiction. From my experience in the Ohio legislature, this is not an uncommon practice. I understand how that works. I understand how you make the sausage here. And why do I say that? I mean, look what the bill does, and I'm going to point out 5 different areas. Number 1, it transfers oversight from the Board of Pharmacy to the Department of Commerce, a business-focused department within the state government. We are expanding the medical marijuana program without the medical community's oversight, whose decisions on this addictive drug are based on evidence-based science and not the for-profit big tobacco, big alcohol industries. This plays right into the playbook of the addiction for profit industry. Second, the bill expands and allows for the use of medical marijuana to treat any condition. It opens it up that any condition can be used through a segment in the bill that I read that allows that to happen. And it increases the number of medical marijuana retail dispensaries in Ohio, and it also increases, it permits the THC levels in extracts to as much as 90%. And it allows a license to, again, we talked about this, we've heard in previous testimony, that it allows licensed dispensaries to advertise on social media or otherwise without receiving prior approval for their advertisements. Let me expand on a few of these issues. First, is the issue of increasing the THC levels of extract to as high as 90%. Frankly, this is insane, moving it to 90%. This is, any medical benefits of marijuana plant come from the CDB component of the plant, not the THC levels, which produces the psychoactive high. I would refer the committee to look at an article written by Shimadzu Company regarding the potency testing in cannabis extracts. It states, and I quote, "The therapeutic CDB is desirable for medicinal effect, but the psychoactive THC may be unnecessary and even undesirable for some patients. From an article in NIH, National Institute of Health, the National Library of Medicine, entitled "The Problem with Current High-Potency THC Marijuana from the Perspective of an Addiction Psychiatrist," states, "We now have concentrated THC products such as oils, shatter, dabs, and edibles that have been able to get the THC concentrations up to 95%. There's absolutely no research that indicates this level of THC is beneficial for any medical condition. The purpose of the products is to produce a high, and the increased potency makes them potentially more dangerous and likely to result in addiction." The United Nations Office of Drug and Crime Report, in their 2021 edition of the Annual World Drug Report, contains the recommendation. It calls for a cap on THC potency. This bill goes completely the opposite direction. If this increase in THC potency remains in the bill, we will be seeing an increase in cannabis use disorder in adults and youth, along with creating or worsening many mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, psychosis, and suicidal tendencies. Second point, I have a huge concern related to the expansion of advertising for the medical facilities, or dispensaries. I'm old enough, I just had a birthday, I'm old enough now to remember the 50s and 60s. It's not the 70s that was talked about. They advertised, the advertisers for tobacco products in the 50s and 60s. They advertised on TV and radio the health benefits that using their tobacco products had. They even had doctors on air saying smoking that is healthy, and they would recommend the certain brand that they were being paid for from the big industries. I mean, I've seen it. And the other issue with that is their products were also marketed in such a way, such as Joe Camel and the Marlboro Man, making it seemingly, quote unquote, cool to use their tobacco products. As we all know, it took decades to reverse that type of marketing. And here we're setting this up, where we're expanding the advertisement piece. It'll take years to get it back under control. Now with Senate Bill 261, we are modernizing the big tobacco's playbook. By now including social media, we are opening Pandora's box by allowing addiction for profit industries to directly market products to the youth of our state. Who uses social media the most? Well, I'm a Facebook guy, but the youth do not use Facebook. They use TikTok, they use Instagram, and I can't even recall all the different avenues that they have to go to. I mean, and if you think this advertisement is not going to get to the youth on these, you're opening a door for these other sites to be marketed to for marijuana. If nothing else, I request the committee to study the advertising that has occurred in states that have legalized marijuana. It would be a real eye-opener for you. Edibles have been made to look very similar to regular products that people consume, such as chocolates, gummy bears, Pop-Tarts, etc. And now, with the vaping devices, they are made to look very sleek and modern. There needs to be strict guidance in this bill, not somebody to set the rules. You need to set the guidelines on this. The rules will follow, but if you open it up in general, even if they make rules, you need to put the guardrails up. You need to put them up in this bill. Finally, I'd like to address the increase in the number of medical dispensaries. The Pharmacy Board in 2017 set an initial limit of 60 dispensaries. Recently, 73 new dispensary licenses were approved, bringing the total allowed to around 133. According to the bill, the number will increase to 300 potential dispensaries to fulfill the requirement of achieving a ratio of at least one retail dispensary per 1,000 registered patients, up to the first 300,000 registered patients. It then allows for the additional dispensaries on an as-needed basis and to be reviewed and evaluated every 2 years. Now, I'm going to put my commissioner's hat on here. I have concerns about the location of where these facilities be located. We have communities in Tuscarawas County that do not want a dispensary located in their community. Now, I understand this is, you'll say, well, this is the NIMBY issue, not in my backyard. But they have legitimate concerns about what the impact will be on their community social and community norms. Is there any consideration on this loss of local control? Can we work together to come up with a solution to the issue? In conclusion, I want to state again my strong opposition to Senate Bill 261 as currently written. There will be long-term health and safety consequences if this bill is passed in the current language. It is my hope that the House Government Oversight Committee will take the concerns expressed in the opposition testimony today to heart and amend this bill so that we can protect Ohio's youth, vulnerable populations, and our communities from the scourge of marijuana addiction and abuse. I'm going to leave with one final thought. This is a personal thought. When you sit back and contemplate your position on this bill, ask yourself this question: am I willing to forever change the fabric of what protects our Ohio communities and youth from harm by weakening such community social and community norms? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'll be open to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Metzger. Representative Seitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Metzger. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
2 questions. The first one, my recollection of the original medical marijuana bill was that we preserved to local communities the right to exclude marijuana dispensaries as part of their zoning exercise. Am I right about that, or don't you know?
I don't recall, Representative Seitz.
I think we did.
But we have communities in Tuscarawas County that have passed ordinances within their cities and villages that say they do not want these. My concern is, does this bill open the Pandora's box in such a way that it's going to be, in order to qualify for the formulas that you put in place with this, where are they going to be placed? That's what I would like to know.
Well,
and that's my concern.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, go back and consult the original medical marijuana bill. I distinctly seem to recall, I have a pretty good memory, that we in fact did preserve the ability of local communities through zoning to ban dispensaries if they didn't want them. The second question is on this social media advertising. And the general law, Doctor, is that states and government may not ban lawful, truthful commercial advertising. They can restrict false advertising. The exception invoked by those talking about tobacco is for things that have been regulated by the FDA as a drug. That was ultimately how they were able to sink their hooks into Marlboro and Reynolds and everybody else, and restrict advertising to children and advertising of tobacco products. And similarly, the constitutional provisions that deal with the regulation of alcohol give government the right to restrict advertising with respect to alcohol. So an interesting constitutional question is presented by your argument, because we're dealing with an interesting thing here. Marijuana is Schedule I federal drug, prohibited, okay? But medical marijuana is, they've said, we'll look the other way, okay? So I guess my question is, are you aware of those constitutional distinctions? And secondly, part of that is, wouldn't it be a step in the right direction to put guardrails in the bill that restrict the advertising of medical marijuana if you are claiming in that ad that it cures or it can be used to diagnose or cure any disease? Because I have an amendment that does that, that says we're not going to let you get away with advertising that it's a tool to diagnose or cure disease. Certainly can be used to mitigate or treat disease. That's why we set it up. But wouldn't that be a step in the right direction to put a guardrail on it for what I would consider to be false advertising?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sykes, your question begs another question from that. This is a medical marijuana program, medical. It's not about the commercialization, because once the advertisements start, and the youth will see that, and some young adults, there are studies, and I can't present them to you right now, but I've read studies that say that increase in marketing, decrease in use perception of harm. It happens. That's the way it's going to work. Now, I understand your constitutional concept. At least it's a step in the right direction to start thinking about how these guardrails need to be put in place. I don't disagree with that part. I'm not saying I'm advocating for your position, Representative, but we have to start thinking more along it is a medical program, medical marijuana. We have to start thinking about the science behind that, evidence-based science behind what we're doing, because we're getting way out ahead of the ability for science right now to be able to do it. Well, you're going to set this program, you enlarge it, you expand it now. So how do you, down the road, just like they did with tobacco, how are they going to start to cause it to lessen? Because you're expanding this program, and at some point it always will occur that they'll come back and try to say, oh, this was an experiment, didn't work, need to find ways. So, and believe me, I understand the medical side. I understand what you're struggling with here. But we have to start treating these things as medical, and the impact that kind of advertising will have on our youth. Bring science into it.
Representative Seitz. Representative Swearingen.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Metzger, for your testimony today. You had in your testimony something about the increase in THC potency resulting in mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, psychosis, suicidal thoughts and tendencies. Can you either submit data to the chair or?
I will be glad to submit, Mr. Chairman, Representative Swearingen, I will be more than happy to present some studies that show that. I'll send that to the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Swearingen, any follow-up? Any other questions for the witness? See none, Commissioner. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you very much. Thank you.